Hello, everybody. Hello, listeners. Hello, Nadia.
Hello.
Listener, listeners, we have a guest today, and I'm really, really excited to have her on. We have Claire Andriola, and I've known Claire since she was, I think, potentially in junior high, but maybe at least in high school. And I knew her when she was a teammate of Nadia when they were in high school doing gymnastics together.
Mhm.
And she also helped with a nonprofit that Nadia and I are both still a part of, Gym Safe. And last I really spoke with Claire, she was a student at UC Santa Barbara. And I just knew she was doing great things because every time I went on LinkedIn, there was something cool that Claire was doing. And so I am really excited to hear about her college experience, get the inside scoop, and then find out what she's doing in these days. So, welcome, Claire.
Thank you so much for having me. This is exciting. Yeah, Nadia and I were teammates together, got to work together a little bit in high school. I think I've definitely known you since middle school, Alyssa.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
So, okay, let's start back to the time when we lost touch with each other pretty much, which is when you went to college. Can
Mhm.
you tell us a little bit about what you studied at UC Santa Barbara and like did you end up studying what you intended to study? And then after that, a little bit about what you've been doing since you've graduated. But let's just start with what you did in Santa Barbara.
Yeah. So I started in Santa Barbara during the pandemic. So that was probably the last time that we had talked. Things were online.
Mhm.
I did go to school my freshman year. And I studied, it's kind of an interesting major that's unique to Santa Barbara called biopsychology. It's essentially biology and psychology, they stick them together. We don't have a neuroscience department, so you're kind of straddling a molecular biology department and a psychological and brain sciences department. And when I started, I thought I was going to go to medical school. That was kind of my MO. I'd been wanted to do it for a really long time. And I stayed the course with the major just because it provided me a great foundation in in physical sciences. You're essentially a biology major for the first 2 years, and then you get to take all these interesting neuroscience classes. But by my sophomore and junior year, I was doing a little bit of volunteer patient care outside of school, and I found I was really interested in research. And so I got involved in some of the more traditional type of research and also the non-traditional research that exists in Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara is just this ecosystem for all kinds of alternative research. So psychedelic assisted therapies, mindfulness and meditation research at the time was really big. Um, and so I spent a good portion of my undergrad experience kind of straddling some patient care, volunteer patient care, and then research within my department. And I ended up in two different labs. One lab that was involved in looking at some MRI studies of meditators and how it could help with stress and anxiety, and then a different lab that was more biology based. It was more of a wet lab environment, growing cells and dishes and things like that. So yeah, it was a great time. Santa Barbara is just a really, really interesting location. But then the school itself has all kinds of opportunities that I didn't even know existed until I got there. So I loved
Yeah.
my time there.
Yeah. Okay. So I knew that when you were going into college that your intention was to go to medical school, or that's what like I think I had last heard from you. And so when I saw all these things that you were doing while you were in Santa Barbara that were kind of like medical school adjacent, but not quite direct, in my
Yeah.
mind, I had formulated this idea that you were gathering all this kind of experience so that you could be a better medical doctor.
That's so
But
funny.
but you actually decided to go a different path, unbeknownst to
Mhm.
me. And and I'm wondering, was it easy for you to switch paths? Like, no problem. Like, this is so much more interesting. I'm really interested in going this way. Or was it like, was it difficult for you to let go of this idea that you were going to go to medical school?
That is the $1,000,000 question, I think, for anyone, young career or college, and even high school, just being in the Bay Area. I think people have this idea, and coming from a gymnastics background, there's a path, there's a structure. You know,
Mhm.
you can do hard things. This is the hard thing, and I like science. Like, that's, I think, a lot of people kind of look into medicine that way. Not everyone. I think for
Mhm.
me, it was twofold. It was one, I got a little bit lucky because I chose a major that if I completed that major, I would still have the option to go to medical school because it was going to get me
Mhm.
the prerequisites. You know, adding in all of the things that make you a competitive applicant was an additional thing to plan out. It's funny that you say that it almost looks like I did them as kind of collateral
Mhm.
experience. I didn't plan it that way, but I think you could probably have talked to me every year of undergrad and I would have had a different 5 to 10 year roadmap. Like, I will just tell you,
Mhm.
when I made the switch from wanting to be a physician to wanting to be a researcher, I thought I was going to go into a PhD in cellular neuroscience. Applied to a Fulbright grant to go and do research in Spain. Like, I was fully on that path. Um,
Mhm.
and so I think for me, the switch takes time, but then once it switches, I bring that same intensity to whatever the next path
Mhm.
is. And I've had to just be okay with realizing that maybe I've gone to a different goal and I've learned what I wanted to, and it still gave me the experience that I needed to make the next decision. Right. None of it was
Mhm.
wasted at all in my mind. Like, I think every single experience that I've had, every class that I've had shaped the next decision I needed to make. But yeah, it's funny. It's always interesting to hear what people kind of see or are kind of anticipating from your path from the outside. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, social media is like that, right? Like you're just like making your assumptions about what's really going on in people's lives, you know? So
Mhm.
so that's why I was so excited to like I like to be proven wrong, you know? Like I like to like find out like, oh, this is actually what's going on, you know? But yeah, I love how you pointed out how gymnastics brings certain things, like a certain level of intensity, a certain level of like resilience, knowing that there's a path to a certain hard goal and you know you can do hard things. I don't know if
Mhm.
gymnastics teaches that or if gymnastics draws those kinds of people that are already that way. But whatever it is, you just like totally hit it spot on. Like, and I love that you're now just like it's no big deal. Like you had this intensity for one goal, and you're like, that's not my goal anymore. But I'm going to bring that same intensity to this next goal.
Yeah, and you're right. I do think some people are wired that way. I think when you go to college, you're exposed to all kinds of different lifestyles, all kinds of different personalities,
Mhm,
upbringings, reasons people have chosen the careers that they're interested in. And I think there's a balance between listening and letting yourself take it in and metabolize some of it while also staying true to who you are and staying grounded in what you want. I think the biggest realization for me in undergrad just came from what do I really value and how do I live my
mhm,
values, even if it looks imperfect or not the way that I want it right now, because it's always going to look that way. Um, and so that became actually my goal, was how do I actually get more uncomfortable with the fact that every stage of life is going to feel very ambiguous and very uncertain. But it's still, if I looked back to myself 2 years ago, it's what I wanted. So it's just
mhm.
interesting to see that. But yeah, I do find, especially going to a school like Santa Barbara, um, and coming from the Bay Area, my intensity just shifted its course. Like, it didn't actually ever die down all that much. It
Mhm.
just found a new target.
Yeah. It must be interesting being an intense like person in the world of meditation. But speaking to that, what have you done since you've graduated? Like, what have you been doing since you
Ah,
graduated?
I've had kind of a really interesting post grad experience. So at the time that I was graduating, I was working in a research lab and I knew I wanted to do some combination of clinical research. So I was applying to kind of a well-known postgrad role, clinical research coordinator. A lot of people will do it as a gap year for medical school or other
Mhm.
pre-professional schools. The lab that I was in was kind of a feeder into clinical psychology programs. Um, at the time that I was starting that role, which was in fall of 2024, I had met this private practice psychiatrist while I was at a coffee shop in San Francisco, and was learning about his practice. He was doing integrative psychiatry. And I just thought it was fascinating. I just wanted to learn more. Obviously, I didn't know if he had a clinic coordinator job or anything like that. Turns out a year later, he had been starting a company and essentially was creating clinical infrastructure for private practice psychiatrists and wanted some help growing the company. And so I actually left clinical research, and that's what I'm doing now. So, very Bay Area, working for a startup, which is a whole different skill set, a whole different um, pace of thinking, cadence of speech. Like the clinical world and the
Mhm.
business world are just worlds apart, just in terms of the pace at which you need to know things, and be ready to make decisions. But it's been really surprisingly fulfilling. Not that I didn't think it would be fulfilling. I was incredibly invigorated and excited by the work, and I was already seeing ways in which it was disrupting some of the clinical workflows where I was working. And so
Mhm.
I knew I wanted to learn more about it, but I didn't know what that looked like until the opportunity was presented last year. Um, so yeah, it's been cool so far, but it's a little bit scrappy. That's all I would say comparatively to a UCSF lab. It's more scrappy. Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta hustle a little bit. Hustle, talk fast, think fast, grab the opportunities, the Silicon Valley kind of vibe. Okay. So the path so far has been like, medical school, maybe physician, and then researcher, and now, working for a startup. And, do you know where you wanna go next? Are you just waiting to see, like, what kind of opportunities come your way and what sounds interesting?
So, and I feel comfortable talking about this now. So I had originally taken the role I'm in as kind of a intermediary role while I was applying to graduate school. So I thought I was going to
Mhm,
go into clinical psychology. Um, with some funding situations and kind of where I'm at right now, it doesn't look like that's happening this year. And I also am in a position where I want to gain a little bit more data with where the field is heading. Um, but eventually, yes, going back to graduate school, I want to gain um, that lens. I think being in an entrepreneurial environment and doing things I never really thought that I was going to do. Also, kind of in the midst of building my yoga business out in the city, I'm realizing that I really enjoy this kind of world and it's been really fun for me. But being 24, I still want to build that credibility clinically, institutionally before I go off and actually do that. So I have a lot more to learn, but I'm learning to be okay taking time with it. I think probably when you knew me when I was a senior in high school, I was just like, if I can finish in 3 years, like if I can go straight. And my path has kind of just shown me the other ways I needed to grow. Yeah.
yeah. It's funny to hear you say that you're just 24 years old. I know that. I know that because I knew you when you were like 13 or something. And I know that you just finished school, so you can't be that much older than 22. But you sound already so worldly and professional and like just seem to have a really like cool, not cool, good, clear grasp of different opportunities that are out there and how you can contribute and how you can gain from those different opportunities. It feels like you have clear eyes for what's out there. And it's, I think not super common for someone in their mid 20s to like sound so clear about all the different the options that are out there. And so I'm just really happy for you that you have this vision and that you have this patience that to take the next step slowly and to see like kind of what opportunities that are out there. And so, but one of the things that you're thinking about still is grad school, right? So
Mhm.
for clinical psychology. And are you going to be applying again or next or for the first time in the next couple of
So
years?
the story of my life is things just continue to change. I and everyone's life maybe. So one of the values have always held is that I want to stay very connected to the one-on-one person experience. Even I find when I've done group coaching of various sorts, whether it was kind of in undergrad and community health or even just teaching exercise classes, like I love the one-on-one before and after and being able to connect with people. And so as I stay open to understanding what opportunities are out there for me, that is something that clinical connection has always resonated with me. Um, what that licensure looks like, I'm very open to gaining more just data. I need more data. I think being in the Bay Area, the company that I'm with now actually launched at American Psychiatric Association. So I had the opportunity to pitch, which is hilarious that I'm pitching, but to like 400, 500 psychiatrists and talk to them about what it's like practicing in a place like San Francisco and just gaining a different vantage point. And I always ask people at that age, if you could have gained a different lens, what do you wish you would have known earlier? And all of them kept continued to say to me, and I think it's something that a lot of people are feeling right now. They're like health economics. Like I wish I understood them earlier. Um, and so I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. Like that's an interesting perspective and lens to bring up. Maybe it's just because they're older practitioners, but so to answer your question, I'm honestly open to even like an MPH in, health economics. I know Nadia, your background is in public health and
Mhm.
undergrad. Um,
Yeah.
but that clinical relationship is really important to me. And I think
Mhm.
there are a lot of ways to get that. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's
Yeah.
definitely ways to split your time. Maybe there's not just one role that you have where that covers everything, but that maybe you're helping the greater good with research and at the same time seeing people one on one.
Yeah,
Mhm.
totally.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people do that. I think because they inform each other so much, they have to.
Yeah, totally.
And different life. It's nice to be able to kind of have that ambidextrous skill set so that when life happens and you may need to adjust, you have the option to kind of lean into either.
Mhm.
Yeah, totally. I'm like, I feel like I've just been silent, but it's honestly because I like just listening to you talk about what you've done in college and like post grad is just so it's honestly just so awesome. And I like the way that you talk about it just like makes me inspired. I'm like, I wanna do these things that you're doing and feel like as passionate as you do about like where you're headed and what you've done so far. It's just actually so awesome. That was unrelated basically to what you said, but like just hearing everything, your plans, I think for me personally is honestly awesome to hear because I feel like I'm surrounded well, everyone in their last year of college, like surrounded by a lot of people who are just like overall confused and like don't know what's next, like don't know where they're headed. And just to hear from someone that's like even 2 years out of college with just like a little bit more, what's the word? I guess like world experience for lack of a better word, but it's like I feel like it's like the light at the end of the tunnel for me at the moment.
That's so
um
funny you say that. I mean, I don't want to. It doesn't, and I'm sure we'll talk about this too. It doesn't ever really go away because you
Totally.
are constantly changing, right? And so I
Yeah.
think it's really about knowing yourself. That was the gift that I think was able to give myself during my time in undergrad was to take time
Mhm.
to get to know myself so that
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this is the template that the outside world tells me is valuable, what I can get paid for, all of these things that we weigh when we're thinking about our career
Mhm.
and path and the kind of lives we want to build. And then there's also like who I am and where I feel happiest, healthiest, what my best work is going to look like, right?
Mhm.
And it's a privilege to be able to consider that. I think that's something we also have to say. I think
Yeah.
the double-edged sword of having so many career opportunities. One of my favorite quotes is, um, oftentimes we'll look at having so many options and we don't want to choose one because we think that all the other doors will close, but you
Mhm.
can't access any of the doors until you choose one.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think it's so true. But it's scary because you're like, oh my gosh, especially when
I
you're
know.
young, so much potential, but that doesn't go away.
Yeah.
I
Um,
actually had that thought this morning. Between my siblings, we have this like group chat on Instagram, and one of my siblings sent something that was like a song about how he just doesn't want to work anymore. You know? And sometimes when you're like out, you've been working for a while and you're just like, oh my gosh, you're just grinding, grinding. You don't want to, I just don't want to work anymore. But then the thought came to my mind like, oh my gosh, we are so lucky that we have all these opportunities. How lucky
Mhm.
are we that we have the option to work, that someone is looking for our skills and paying us for it? Like, there are so many people that don't have that opportunity.
yeah.
But you said something earlier that I think might be shining through when you're talking in a way that's inspiring to Nadia, which is that you decided that you were just going to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, you know, and then you seem to have just embraced that. And then once you can kind of like accept that that's the situation, that things are always changing and it's going to always be a little bit, you know, not super clear, then everything becomes okay because you're just like, you know, it's not going to be super, super clear. So you just like
Mhm.
accept it and move on and do the best you can with the stage that you're at.
Totally. And that's also a balancing act. Like, I'm sure
Yeah.
working with gymnasts, having grown up a gymnast, there's an intensity there that everyone tells you is a good thing. And it is totally, it's a really, really, really good thing. Being
Mhm.
able to set goals, being able to be very deliberate, running after them, kind of lighting a fire under your butt and just going for things is
Mhm.
needed. I mean, that's kind of what every career coach ever tells you. Like, it's the motivation, right? Like, difference between successful people and unsuccessful is being able to do things when you don't want to do them, right? Like, but
Mhm.
I think there's a certain level of self-awareness to know when that's really helpful for the situation you're in and when you need to grow in a different direction, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
remember the impetus that I was standing at because it was right about halfway through my freshman year. And I
Mhm.
realized that kind of hard hitting, gritting my teeth mentality was just not working. You know, it's like
Yeah.
effort is there, but the strategy is wrong.
Mhm.
Um, and I really didn't want to take the more type B strategy. I didn't want to. I'd never done it before. I didn't have any data that it would work. And lo and behold, when I did, and I kind of, the pendulum swung that way, the way that I'm wired just evened it out again. And
Mhm.
so I got to see
Yeah.
what that perspective is like and what's valuable about it, what's not valuable about it, and
Mhm.
then kind of return to center. But I'm still always returning back to center. Like, I have tendencies
Yeah.
that go both directions, like
Yeah.
everyone. But
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
No, totally. I definitely feel that gymnastics intensity just it never goes away, but I also find myself more often than not really trying to like push back against it and like I want to be chill and want to like not have I don't know. Sometimes that like lighting the fire in your butt is like too much and I like would just want to, find something that's me and I don't know, not driven towards goals that may or may not be like my true passion or just like what I think I should be working towards. Um, but we're still finding that balance. And I think this all like goes into, you're talking about how like finding ways to like be okay with feeling uncomfortable. Like that is just something that I feel like every day I'm like balancing with. And I mean, I continued doing gymnastics in college. Like I was on the club gymnastics team, and it was kind of like that same little fire is like still there, but I'm like trying to do it in my own way now that like makes it, feel good for me and not, I don't know what it felt like before in high school and, that intensity that felt like wrong a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
think seeing you do gymnastics in a different way that's like chill and a few hours a week, and you can choose whether or not you compete, and you can choose whatever skills you want to do, and you're just not like your whole life is riding on this season or whatever. Like that
Mhm.
was you taking back gymnastics and making it something that matched the kind of um, lower level of intensity that you want to have more of in your life. And
Yeah.
then you're doing the same thing with potentially going to medical school, right? Like
Yeah.
you're going to apply to medical school, and you're surrounded by all these people that kind of want to go straight into it and do the major that's specifically for applying to
Mhm.
medical school. And you've been given advice to like, in the beginning, you were given advice to not be a public health major because it's like,
Yeah.
that's not the direct path to medical school. And you're like, nope,
Yeah.
this is what I want to do. And so
Yeah.
you're like purposely picking things that aren't like you have that intensity in you, but like you're purposely trying to find like
Yeah.
side routes too, so that you're
Yeah.
not always like gung ho to that one end goal.
I
It's
know.
funny you say that too. And that's exciting, Nadia. And I agree with that approach because
Mhm.
um even now I will talk to, so I do a little bit, this is kind of my funny little side gig work, but I do some contracted yoga teaching for a clinical trial. The
Uh-huh.
psychiatrist that runs
That's
it,
awesome.
it's the coolest thing ever. She's amazing, out of the UCSF Osher
Mm.
Center. And she was talking to me about it. And she had said to me, she goes, "You have such niche interests. Medical schools would love you."
Mhm.
Because like I do think that part of it is just being yourself. I know it's so cliche, but
Yeah.
people, and especially people who are further on in their career, they're going to have to justify the choices that they've made. And so sometimes it'll
Yeah.
be objective advice, and other times it'll be, um, this is the lens that I operate from.
Mhm.
And I think something that can be tough with gymnastics, and my dad talks about this all the time. I'm really close with him and ask him about every career decision I make because
Mhm.
he was also a competitive athlete in college and had that kind of identity shedding.
Mhm.
But he
Yeah.
said, he was a baseball player, and he said, one of the things that gymnastics is so different from baseball is it's so individualistic. You learn to get very comfortable challenging your own thoughts and your own fears. And those are great things when you're kind of having to do a solo endeavor. But in terms of
Mhm.
collaborating with others and being able to weigh different opinions while staying grounded in
Yeah.
yourself, like that's a skill set that I think a lot of coaches really try to instill in us, but the sport makes it hard. Um,
Mhm.
and so that's something I really sought after because it's just needed regardless of the career that you do. But I also do think
Yeah.
medicine, it attracts a certain intensity level, which is not a bad thing. It's
Totally.
a good thing.
Yeah.
You need that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, always staying true to what your growth path is, because then you're going to gain, you've probably, if you're applying now, you probably get, like, you read a personal statement yet again. And it's a lot easier to tell your story when your narrative
Mhm.
is aligned with who you are, not
Yeah.
yeah,
Totally.
The
I mean,
check
that's like,
marks that people
yeah.
tell you.
I mean, that's the world I'm surrounded by right now. But I've decided, or I guess I've been decided like a little bit, but that I'm going to take a couple gap years just for that reason of like, I really truly feel like I need to find myself in my true passions. I think like going straight to school also felt medical school also felt like, the direct way, the way that everyone else is doing. And like, right. And honestly, like really sparked after I finished gymnastics senior year of high school and like went to college is like, just kind of want to do a different path than everybody else and like, you know, push like the boundaries a little bit because like, you know, I didn't want to do the clear cut path anymore. But yeah, so, you know, it really, gymnastics just like builds you into a certain type of person. And I feel like I'm learning to like grow with it and also like kind of push back against it too, which is like always hard.
Yeah, well, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, so, you know, in closing, I guess, Nadia, you had a lot of questions that you thought about asking Claire. That I think a lot of it was covered, but like, she seems to be like just one step ahead of you in like the next path. And so, like, here's your opportunity to kind of ask her for yourself and for the other people that are in the situation you're in, just right about to graduate from college. Like, what would you like to ask her?
I honestly, I guess, do you have any, maybe like to make it more specific, any advice on, like your mindset post graduation? You know, I feel like it's like because things can get so confusing and like stressful, it's just very easy to get bogged down into all of that and, you know, not, I feel like you had a good grasp of like what was ahead of you and all of your like opportunities that were available to you. Like, do you have any advice on, you know, being able to keep that more positive, like open-minded mindset instead of, you know, the opposite?
It's a good question. I don't think this is just a gymnast thing. I think it's just an ambitious person thing, ambitious woman thing. You know, you're going to have your plan and probably plan B and plan C and all these
Yeah.
things. And I almost just want to say worrying is suffering twice. Like,
Mm-hmm.
bet like if let's say, and it's almost guaranteed because that's just kind of sometimes how careers work, you get in an environment and you're doing the work and you're learning a lot in one direction, but it's not necessarily the direction you want to be learning. And so that's actually the situation that I had. I loved
Mm-hmm.
the environment. I loved my coworkers. I'm still very close with a lot of the girls. All of them were going on to medical school to become neurologists.
Mm-hmm.
And so like they were really invested in this knowledge base and learning this clinical workflow and all those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of it was hard because I knew I didn't want to stay, but also part of it was having perspective like, okay, I'm 22. You learn you learn through every experience, you learn what you do like and what you don't like, right? And
Mm-hmm.
either way it's a win because you learned something. Um,
Yeah.
but it's hard because those decisions, like there's only so much data, only so much career guidance, only so much advice you can get from friends and family.
Mm-hmm.
And those are really valuable assets. Like they're probably the most
Yeah.
valuable things I think all of us have and how you've gotten
Mm-hmm.
so far and all those things. But then it comes down to like, okay, what am I learning and what is it teaching me about what I want at this time in my life? One of the things that I hadn't even thought about before I got to undergrad and had a professor who was a super interesting intersection. She was a behavioral endocrinologist, which meant that she studied the way that hormones worked in the brain. And she talked all about this kind of fertility crisis. And I
Mm-hmm.
started to think a lot about the lifestyle I wanted to live and the
Mm-hmm.
goals I wanted for my life. Not that that was a priority when I was, 19, 20.
Mm-hmm.
It planted a seed in my head just to think about, okay, like there's more than just this one path
Yeah.
that's still aligned with like, I'm still working in healthcare. I love getting to talk
Mm-hmm.
to psychiatrists. And but there's just so many different ways that you can have that. That's not necessarily
Yeah.
like being an MD, but
Yeah.
that is also a very fulfilling path. And I mean, I've met some fantastic doctors who have awesome work-life balance
Mm-hmm.
and have a lovely family. But, I think just
Yeah, totally.
learning as you go. I know it's just so cliche, but I wouldn't worry about it so much. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Just
I mean,
learning.
honestly, yeah. I mean, people say it, but like it's always good to hear it. I feel like, it feels self-explanatory, but it's hard. It gets hard. But I think like, right now that is my path. Like I want to go to medical schools at some point in the future, but like the fact that I'm privileged to have these opportunities to go in other directions or to find other like areas of healthcare that I'm interested in is just, it is really exciting. So it's nice to hear from someone that, is in a different healthcare world that I probably could not have imagined, but like is
Same.
still like extremely interesting. And, just like goes to show like what kinds of things might be hidden. But yeah.
There's so much.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm sure you've even just seen with public health and understanding research. I mean, that whole infrastructure is its own wheelhouse, right?
Totally. Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing is just don't feel bad. Like, I think that's the biggest thing is it, I like either way you won because you experienced something that taught you what you needed to do for the next opportunity and trust that you will. If you're put in a situation where you're learning enough about like, I need to choose a different path, you will mobilize the resources to choose it. I always thought like, oh, what if I become complacent or what if I don't? If you're a gymnast, like you're just not wired that way. Like you will mobilize the resources to figure it out. But I think it's also in some ways a rite of passage. I living where I live and I talk to so many people in different industries. I have a lot of friends that work in tech and that's its own wave of anxiety happening right now. And, I think it's also a rite of passage of this age.
Yeah.
Yeah. From probably 22 to 30.
Maybe even after.
A lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Well, I really look forward to talking to you again on this podcast in like 3 years and finding out what you're doing, because I feel like it's going to be pretty exciting to hear what you've done and then where you are. But thank you for sharing your path up to this point. And I'm really optimistic for you. Not that I'm like a seer of futures, but I don't know. It's like a couple years ahead. I feel like you have, from my perspective, it looks like you have a good path ahead of you.
Thank you. We will see where it goes. It's not been, like I said, anything I could have predicted at all.
Which makes it that much more exciting to see where you're going to end up. Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you so much, Claire. Thanks for coming and joining us, and really appreciate your time and all that you've shared. And I feel like we could have talked a lot longer. Like I want to hear about the studies. I want to hear about the company that you're working for. We'll just have to like bring you back on again.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good evening.
You too.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.